G'day everyone. Thought I'd talk about an interesting rumour about a new Canon EOS-R coming next year. But before I do that, I thought I might discuss this with you because I've been noticing over the last few weeks, there's been an awful lot of switching over to Canon. And I'm wondering if this is a real concerted push from Canon to take some sales from Sony. And I think that might be what's going to happen in 2020. I think we're going to have a really hard push from Canon to try and get back that full frame market share that they've lost to Sony. But there's an interesting thing I wanted to show you, and it's this little document. I think I found this on DPR Review. It was one of the discussion panels over the weekend, and I have checked, and the cameras are still incredibly cheap at the moment. This was what someone, I did take his name off because I didn't know if he'd want me to share it, but he just said that this weekend Canon put on some EOS-R on sale for $1,500 with discounts as low as $1,300, even less using Canon's loyalty program, which Sony doesn't have. The EOS RP is only $1,000, and it says, I know that these don't have dual card slots and IBIS, but they do have a much better touchscreen, better EVF than the A7 III, including an adapter that works like native, because it does work very, very well with the EF lenses, and I've seen that myself. And a flip screen. If you're looking at the current like-for-like prices, also consider the RF lenses a brand new design. So in other words, they are brand new designs. And I think, really, the RF lenses are probably the best lenses that are out there. And the FE lenses have been around a couple of years. Well, that's not all of them. I mean, like the 135 is new and things like that. But let's just check prices. I mean, if you're looking here, what they're saying was, at the weekend, the A7 III is $1,800 versus the EOS-R, which is $1,300. So that is a massive saving there. I just checked on B&H, and it's about $200 difference. It's now about $1,499, but then you can get these Canon rebates if you look around as well. And the EOS-R is $1,000. I'm not sure where he got these prices from. The 35mm FE is $750. The RF is $450. The adapter, the FE, is $180 versus the RF, which is included, or $100. The 70 to 200 GM is $2,600 versus the RF, which is $2,700. So the lenses really are quite comparable if you look at the prices between the Sony and the Canon lenses. I thought the Canon were much dearer, but they're not. The 2470 GM is $2,200. The RF is $2,300. The 24105 is $1,100 against the RF, which is $900. I love that Sony advances the sensor so quickly, but things like flip-up screen and better adapter should have been done by now. And it now looks like Sony needs to adjust their prices, and that's what I wanted to discuss with you, is looking at those prices. Do you think that Sony should perhaps start to adjust their prices looking at what Canon are offering? Because really, if you're looking at an introduction, say a beginner coming in, the Canon EOS-R mount at that price is really hard to beat. Now, the thing that I wanted to discuss is also this. So let me just drag this over. So there are rumors going around that Canon, they're about to announce an EOS-R MarkII. Well, they're saying it's already in testing, and the announcement is going to be at Photokina. That's what they're saying. But they're talking now that two versions of this are going to be announced next year. So they're saying there's going to be a high-res one. I think Canon wants to take back that high-res mantle that they had. They're talking about releasing a 75-megapixel sensor. If you look down here, and I'll share this down below, but they're saying maybe as early as February, and that will have 75-megapixel image sensor, dual card slots, and more. So it's interesting to see what they're saying there, but they're also talking about a EOS-R MarkII is also in testing. Now, they're not releasing any specs at this stage, but I would expect Canon would have to put dual card slots on that camera and potentially IBIS or something like that. Although if the lenses have good IBIS, it sort of does negate that. But I think it would definitely have to have IBIS and perhaps get rid of that terrible crop that they're dealing with their 4K images at the moment. I mean, I think that I'm not going to read all through this because I'd love you to read through it and let me know down below what you think about this. But I think what may be happening here is that Canon may have finally woken up And I think Nikon probably too, but Nikon is, as we know, struggling, but they are just about to release their RAW updates and things like that in firmware this week. But Canon have normally been holding back like that. They sort of wait 3 years or longer between releases. And it looks like they're going to change that thinking and start to release like Sony have in the past to continually update. So it's an interesting strategy. So it's something that Canon haven't done before. And it looks like they might be changing tact. Now, I think they may be doing that to stop people switching over. And I honestly think if they bring out a decent EOS-R, it would sell very, very well. Like at the moment, the problem is it's only got one card slot, so that puts it out for me. And that is a real downer. If they had dual card slots in those cameras, I may have even been tempted to buy one earlier. But it's interesting to see what Canon may be doing. And I'd love to know your opinion about this, particularly when you look at the prices. So to sum up, the prices to me that I showed you before seems to be that Canon are going to do a real push next year in 2020 to try and do something really outstanding with their cameras. And it's a really interesting scenario. Like I said, they're going to try and push out a really high megapixel camera that will obviously have more megapixels than the A7R4. And then who knows what the EOS-R Mark II is going to have on it as well. I mean, there's talk about floating sensors and things like that I've discussed in last week's live show that I did. But it's certainly going to be an interesting year. Now, apart from that, we probably will find that Sony are going to announce, say, an A7 IV, and there'll also be, hopefully, an A7S III. So next year is going to be a particularly interesting year. And I think it might be a real battle next year between Canon and Sony. And I think that is a fantastic thing for all of us. Remember, we want competition in this industry. Love to know what you think about that down below. Let me know in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Bye for now.